Hey guys, it's Jane. It's Babbles time. Back for one of the BookTube SFF Awards Babbles topics. This week it's reading tips for beginners in SFF. So my probably number one tip is that SFF is such a broad category that one of the tricks is actually finding books that really speak to you, and not every book that is within that genre speaks to everybody. So there's a real range, and finding your own kind of niche is sometimes a little tricky. So initially, at any rate, it's a good idea to try and read a bunch of different stuff. And because not everything you're going to like, it's good to do that in such a way that there's a relatively low cost of entry. So that means either stuff that you can get cheap or for free, or stuff that's really short, that you're not having to invest a lot of time in. So probably one of the best things you can do is go to the library and have a look and see what they've got on the shelves. Now, you might want to look at, if you're an absolute beginner, you might want to look at a crossover book that's from another property, like a TV show or a movie that you have enjoyed. So maybe Doctor Who or Star Wars, or I don't know, any kind of science fiction or fantasy TV show or movie. Almost all of them have crossover literature, so that's a good thing to look for. Or you go down the road of a particular trope. You might be like have, you know, the idea of dragons in your head, or time travel, or aliens, or I don't know, fairies. You can just have a look, you know, what's on the cover usually gives you a good idea. Or even better, pro tip, ask your librarian. They're bound to have some suggestions of books that are popular, and anything that you can tell them to kind of narrow it down will help. So yeah, you might want to try YA. Not everybody vibes with YA, but YA often avoids some of the more complex structural stuff that you find in some SFF, and if you're a beginner reader, that might be a bit much. So you might want to start with YA, not necessary. If you're looking for short and free, there's also a number of places online you can get short stories to look at. Tor.com is a great place to look at for short stories. So yeah, trying to find what your groove is a really key thing. I personally had a few sort of starting moments in SFF, but it was actually when I found Cyberpunk, which is not really that much of a thing anymore. It's kind of a bit passe, but when I was a late teenager, early 20-something, it was like the thing at the time. And when I found it, I was like, this really speaks to me, and that's what kind of completely pushed me over into the edge into being a science fiction fantasy type reader. Now, once you've found a book, my other tip would be to not stress the details so much. Lots of science fiction and fantasy books are set in secondary worlds, and there's a lot of world building that goes on. Different authors that approach that differently, and some readers can find that really confronting, and they're just they're trying to dig into the details really carefully, and they find it too much information. My way of dealing with that is I just sort of read through. And I consider lots of the detail stuff weather, and usually it kind of coalesces at some point. You kind of just sort of feel your way through it. That does mean you miss some of the details, but for me that works most of the time. Not all of the time. And the other thing to know is that you should not be afraid to DNF a book. If I have got you know, 20% in and I'm just not loving it, I am perfectly fine with dropping it. There's actually occasionally that can be a mistake. The book that I'm reading right at the moment, right up until the 40% point, I was going, I know I said I wanted to read this, but it's just totally not working for me. And then at the 40% mark, there was this twist, and suddenly I'm loving this book. I am so loving this book. So that can happen, but life is too short, especially if you're a beginner. If you haven't been grabbed by the opening couple of chapters, you know, try something else. Yeah, so find your groove. Don't sweat the detail. Wait for it to just sort of coalesce for you. Drop it if it's not working, and enjoy it. Just enjoy it. We read for enjoyment. Science fiction and fantasy, all genre readers, I think, you know, it's not like there is no kind of quality sort of thought experiments and, you know, important ideas going on, but we really are reading for the enjoyment. And so if you're not enjoying it, try something else. That is the best that I can do with advice or tips for a beginner SFF reader. Yeah, it's all good. It's all good. I love it, but it's not for everybody. So find what you love. Hope you're all well. Talk to you later. Bye.